Hi, everyone, and welcome to NYC Apartment Building Chat. I am Tina Larsson, co-founder and owner of the Larsson Group, and I have this video chat where I'm chatting with a bunch of industry professionals from the New York City apartment building industry. And today I have the great pleasure of having Jeff Perlman with me. Jeff Perlman is the co-founder and owner of Bright Power. It's one of the largest energy consulting firms in New York City, and now they also operate nationwide. And I'm so happy to have Jeff with me for this light conversation. For taking the time out of his very, very busy day in these times when there's a lot of energy consulting going on in New York. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks so much, Tina. It's great to be here.
How did you start Bright Power? Tell me.
Yeah, so Bright Power is now over 16 years old. So we've been in this business since before people were talking about energy efficiency nearly as much as they are today. But you could actually trace the roots of Bright Power back before that. I graduated from college in 2001, shortly before the September 11th attacks. When I was in college, I studied applied physics, but the thing that I learned the most doing was actually building a solar-powered car that we raced from Washington, D.C. to Orlando, Florida. So, great engineering project. Learned all about solar panels, batteries, what you could do. Also learned that solar-powered cars is not a particularly practical technology for solving the world's problems. We had a gasoline-powered vehicle behind, we had a gasoline-powered vehicle in front to protect our delicate solar car. And so when I graduated, I wanted to make some impact on the world, but I knew that transportation, at least solar transportation, wasn't necessarily going to be the thing. And so in 2001, solar panels on rooftops were a viable solution, although they were still quite expensive. So those of you who have been following the solar industry, solar panel prices have come down at least 5 times, probably close to 10 times from what they were back then. And so, so I started looking at solar as an opportunity and looked at how we could put it on New York buildings. We started a nonprofit to advocate for more solar panels on buildings in New York City and how we could get the funds together. And then began to learn more about energy efficiency, because there are so many things that you can do inside a building to make it use less energy, and it's more cost effective. And so a combination of that and some consulting work that I was doing led me to realize it was a real business opportunity to bring renewable energy, solar panels, and other kinds of clean energy generation together with energy efficiency to really solve the whole building problem, from the generation to the consumption of energy. Make buildings not just use less energy and use cleaner energy, but also that there were so many problems with the buildings that we have here in the city to make them uncomfortable. So, heating systems, all New Yorkers have experienced the opening the window in the middle of winter problem because your steam radiator is just spewing off heat. And so it's fairly obvious that there are some big issues with the way our buildings consume energy. And so there's an opportunity to make buildings not only use less energy and be more environmentally beneficial, but also to make them more comfortable and better places to live. So it was a win-win-win all around. And I was excited to start the company with that vision in mind, and have, over the years been able to do some projects that are really combine all those things, some that just do the renewable piece and some that just do the energy efficiency piece. But are really always looking to try to do the most holistic thing we can to make each of the buildings we work with operate at its peak performance, low energy cost, and maximum comfort and health for everybody.
That's great. And it's so interesting because you are the good guy who is doing this with the perspective of making a difference in the world, doing it from the angle that we want to reduce the expenses. And the side effect is, now I care very much for the environment, or we care very much for the environment, but our angle was different, but it has the same end result, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and look, well, it's got to make business sense, right? And so I think that whether you start at it from a business angle or start at it from an environmental angle, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you have to get to the point where the decision makes sense for the decision maker. And that's one of the things that's been really important for us over time, is to really understand. When I started Bright Power, I said, oh, I'm starting an energy company.
Yeah.
5 years later, I said, you know what? I don't have an energy company. I have a real estate company. Because my customers, who are the owners or the condo co-op boards of buildings, make decisions because it makes sense for their real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really, even if, me and my team are primarily in it to save the world, our customers only make the decision to do the work that we need to do with them if it makes business sense for them on their terms.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you find that old buildings, I mean, we primarily work with old buildings because new buildings, how bad can they be?
Very
And
bad.
so
New buildings can be very bad.
Oh, they can. But do you work primarily with old buildings or it's 50-50?
We work with buildings all the way through, from buildings that are 100 years old to buildings that are not yet constructed. And so we actually work in the early design phases as well. But one of the, I think, myths is that old buildings use more energy and are more inefficient than new buildings. We certainly see many new buildings that sometimes aren't built with the greatest care, or where certain decisions were made in the process, or certain controls were value engineered out, or certain shortcuts were taken, and ultimately the buildings actually perform quite badly. And there are sometimes very easy opportunities. I mean, we've seen ventilation pipes in walls that were never connected properly. We've seen fans that were put in backwards, or the other key thing to think about, and this is true across the spectrum, old building, new building, what have you, is that there's the equipment that you buy and there's how it's controlled and operated. And so you can buy the most efficient boiler in the world, and if you don't put the right controls on it and don't make sure that it's operating in the right way, it can be extremely inefficient. And you can buy a kind of medium grade, sort of average piece of gas burning equipment and run it really, really well, and you can actually end up with a more efficient building for energy consumption than someone who bought that super expensive, super high efficient piece of equipment and didn't run it right. Now, if you have the high efficient piece of equipment and you run it well, that's obviously the best situation.
Of course, of course. But are you seeing a trend in putting in like split systems or VRF or all of those variations to electrify buildings?
So for new buildings in particular, we certainly have several new buildings, especially ones that are being built to that very high performance passive house standard that we love to work on when our developers want to go that far. And so those almost always use a VRF or a mini split system. Mm-hmm. In the retrofit situation, it can be, it's something that we look at, and we definitely try to make it work whenever we can. I think that it's really important. Right now, we're at a real crossroads in New York City. We have this Climate Mobilization Act. We have these laws that are driving our buildings and our building owners rightfully to reduce carbon emissions. And there are going to be various step downs. So 2024 is the first one, where about 20% of buildings are going to be required to reduce their carbon emissions or get a fine. Once you get to 2029, 2030, it's going to be 80% of buildings, 75, 80% of buildings are going to have to reduce their emissions or potentially get a fine. And we expect step downs like that to continue all the way through to 2050 when we get to our 80 by 50 or maybe 100 by 50 carbon reduction goals. And so right now is the time to take stock, right? I would not advise investing in new gas-fired equipment today.
This was great. Thank you so much for stopping by. And everybody, Jeff's contact information will be below. I will post it there. This will be all over social media. Please share and like and comment and contact Jeff at Bright Power for all of your energy reduction needs.
Hey, Tina.
Thank you so much. Yeah, great to have you here. Thank you everyone for stopping by. That was the end of NYC Apartment Building Chat. I hope you enjoyed the topic, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss our next video interview. I hope to see you soon. Bye.